All right. All right. Well, hello, everyone. We're just getting set up. I'm going to wait a few minutes for some people to come in. And Graciela is here. And I'm not sure if she wants to come in with video or not. I'll kind of leave that up to her.
Billy and Anthony and everybody. How are you?
I am doing, yes, Anthony is here. Did you want to use video today or do you just want to go with voice?
We can use video. I'm here in my living room with my child, typical Friday night.
Cool. Awesome.
Look, Elisha, look, who is
Sonia's
that?
here.
Yeah.
Hey.
How are you? How are you doing?
I am doing really good. I've had a long week. We've had a crazy week at work. And so, yeah, but other than that, I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. And but other than that, yeah, not too much has happened. And I'm kind of one of those people, not too many highs, not too many lows. So, all right, I'll wait just maybe another minute or so, and then I'll do the introduction, and we'll start the show. Thank you so much, Graciela, for coming on. I know you have a busy schedule. I know you got a show to do later yourself.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm going to do the Wisdom Writers Group at 9, and we're going to talk about branding for authors. So I'm excited to have that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to try and I usually try to keep these shows at about an hour. If we do run over, obviously I know you have to go. But I generally try to keep these. It's about 8:02 now. I usually try to keep these at about an hour, so we should be fine. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started then, and we'll take it from there. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Billy Dees Podcast. I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. And I smirk when I say that because there are other podcasters, I will say, who imitate me when I say that, but mocked might be a better word, which is fine. They do it in the spirit of humor, I'm sure. But anyway, we are primarily an interview and a commentary podcast. We are actually live. This episode is being done live on a Fireside. And the groove that's kind of hit for me on this platform is talking about the application of, let's say, audio and video into your content, like your main content. If you're a writer, for example, how are you using quality content to bring people to your writing? And audio has become a big part of that. Audio is a very big part of that. And that was unexpected. If you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, is audio going to be on par with what video is doing? I would probably have to say no. I mean, other than podcasts and things like that, internet radio style programs, that's one thing. But for social audio, as it's being called now, for that to be incorporated into people's content marketing plan, if you would have asked me that pre-COVID, I would have said, no, I don't. I just don't see that happening. But it's funny how things change, and this is where we're at. Got a couple of people scheduled that might come in tonight, but the first one is Graciela, and Graciela I actually have her website up here. And to kind of give you some insight into who she is and what she's all about, all you have to do is realize the website is Song of Myself Coaching. It's somcoaching.com, Song of Myself. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, it's because there's a reason for that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. So, Song of Myself is a poem by American transcendentalist poet Walt Whitman, who wrote Leaves of Grass a long time ago, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And Song of Myself, the poem, is really about all the things that my work is about. So it's about mindfulness, confidence, authenticity, embracing, your place in this world. And I fell in love with it when I was early 20s, and I never gave it up.
You mentioned, and I hope I say this correctly, transcendentalism when I interviewed you a while back. That's not a word you hear every day. That's a word that has a very narrow application in the common vernacular. So, can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Well, transcendentalism it's a literature movement, but as a whole, and I apologize, my child has a bell in his hand. Um, as a whole, transcendentalism is about finding um, the tools that you would seek outside of yourself. When you tap into transcendentalism, you find them within. So in my line of work, I teach, guide, and coach people through really developing the tools for themselves. What does that look like from within? And of course, if my client is interested in religion or faith-based work, then that's outside of themselves, right? Then we
Right.
also tap into that. But I'm very interested in people maneuvering these tools and figuring them out from within and for them.
Interesting. On your website, you have a couple of things listed here: a certified life coach, you're a storyteller, mindset expert, hope enthusiast. I really like that one. Um, Hope is, and I spoke to you briefly about this when I interviewed you some time ago, and I want to clarify this for our show today, and then I'm going to kind of get into how you apply audio into your work. But a hope is it's a word that we kind of take for granted. Like, I hope the Browns win. And if you're a football fan, you know that can be very futile. But a hope can mean a lot more things. If someone's critically ill, we talk about, well, there's always hope. Where there is life, there is hope is a very common saying. And I believe Stephen Hawking was one of the ones that said that quite often. And of course, he was a scientist, brilliant scientist who lived completely paralyzed most of his life due to ALS. And so that in that context, hope means something far more grand. But I think hope sometimes gets a bad rep because people presume that when you say, well, I hope something is, that you're just sitting around wishing for the best. But hope, you have to participate in it. You have to be proactive for that hope. Hope can inspire you, but it can't do all the work for you. Am I talking about that correctly? Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, oh my gosh. So you touched on it greatly, and the thing is that hope gets a bad rap, but it also really depends on the connotation and in the tone behind how we use it, because it can also be used in a form of resentment, like, oh yeah, I hope so, right? Like my
Yeah.
tone and my intention really colors the whole experience. And I didn't really think about hope at all until I'm investigating hope in Christ, which is its own thing, right? And so
Hmm.
Christians and faith-based religions understand very well what that means. You wait in the Lord and everything is done in the time of the Lord, and that's fine. But then I realized in my research that the American Psychological Association has a plethora of research as to what hope is as a mindset, as something that happens in your prefrontal cortex that you can employ as a tool. And it's, when you employ a tool, it means that you're using it, and the word use implies that there's an action taken. So it's all really action oriented. It's not that I'm going to hope my dreams come true, is what can I do today to help that dream come true? Even if it seems very significant, it really isn't. And so the point is to get people to understand that every step matters towards that goal, and before you know it, the goal is there, right? And you're right
Yeah.
there at the cusp of it. And so now you start the process again, hoping for something else. So the journey never ends to realize these things. And other people call it manifestation, people call it blessings, and some people just call it living, right? Living your
Yeah.
best life. That is what living your best life is in my eyes. It's not like, I'm going to be rich and be on a yacht and drink champagne all day. First of all, I don't drink. But to me, living my best life is, what do I want to do? What do I want to create? And all of a sudden, there it is. I created it. I made it happen. And hope is the main ingredient for that.
Yeah. Well, you have one of the most practical, and this is going by my experience with it, finding it online and dealing with other people who are coaches and try to be a motivation in people's lives. You have one of the more practical approaches, and like I said, I've interviewed you before, and I know the steps that are involved, and it's very comprehensive. And I have so much respect for the mechanics of how you approach this, because there's a lot of people online, quite frankly, that use, I'm going to say, positivity as a commodity that can be bought and sold, very much like religion can. There's a reason why you can lay on a bed of 10,000 nails and not get cut. It has nothing to do with feeling good about the fact that you won't get cut. And I always say, if you're going to impress me, just sit on one nail. That will impress me. Or just step on one hot coal. But you have a practical approach to how people go forward with improving their lives. And I think it's twofold. I think you have the skills. You're amazingly skilled at what you do, but you also walk the walk. You have this spirit about you that just jumps out. You have this positive energy. I know that you're an empath, and you talk about that, and that sensitivity that you have comes across. So you have a lot of tools here. So let's talk a little bit about social media first. How do you bring that out? Let's say in the mix of Twitter, Facebook, and all these other things. How do you let that show?
Well, in all honesty, I'm not even sure that I'm an authority on these things. I think at this point, after 13 years doing it, it's just part of my work, right? Part of my daily work. I just show up, right? And so, Elijah, you were talking earlier about quality content or creating social media content as a writer. And I feel like I can definitely identify with that. So what I'm hoping people will see in my Instagram, for example, is my caption, right? Because the caption is where the value that I'm providing is. My 3-second, 4-second, or 6-second reel of me, mouthing a sound that is trending doesn't really give you the value, right? Like, as a writer, the real value for me is in the caption, and I can't really control how many people read it or who reads it or, how they interpret it. But I think it really, when it comes to an authenticity piece, it's really become apparent who is striving for that authenticity and who just doesn't really think authenticity matters, or who is not there to really provide that kind of content. And when it comes to, not just selling hope, and let's call it that, right, as part of my business, but really working with highly sensitive empaths to figure out how to overcome those sensitivities. Part of the process in overcoming that sensitivity is figuring out, who am I when I take these sensitivities out? Who am I when I really figure out what my own energy is about? There's that authenticity that I want people to figure out how to let it shine through. And it's beautiful what you said about me, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for that, because that's what I want my clients to get to do for themselves, right? Oh, Graciela, like, you're so magnetic and you shine. And I'm like, well, this is what I want to work for you to get to do for yourself.
Right.
You want to shine, you want to be authentic, you want to stand on your truth, you want to show up in the world standing in your power. What does that look like? It looks different than me, right? And so every client is different and every experience is different, which is also what I love about working one-on-one with people, is that every single coaching conversation is different. And I find that beautiful. It's not that I require variety, but it just never gets boring or tiring, right? Because I'm working with different people, and it's.
Well, when I ask you, like, for example, you mentioned that you're not an authority on how to apply certain things on social media, but the fact of the matter is, I don't know that there is such a thing. I mean, I believe that there is certain things that work well better than others, not using too many hashtags and just, the general rules such as that. But what I talk about on this show a lot really has to do with what works for you. And that's something that I believe people can use, not because they're going to copy it, but because of the fact it expands the horizon of what's available. It's kind of like one of those things. Well, if she can do that, that kind of strikes an idea in my mind, then I can go this direction. I can try this for myself. So anytime somebody comes on a platform like this and talks about what works for them and how they've utilized it, it has value, not because they're instructing anyone or not because they expect someone to follow in their footsteps 100%, but it's just that it expands people's notions of what's possible. And you have done that for me. You've been my content has changed slightly just because of my association with you lately, listening in on some of your stuff. I've been very careful to put a little bit more humanity in my content because I believe that's so important. And you're right. Sometimes we have to do silly things online. I mean, you have to mix it up. There's the dances and all these other things, but somewhere along the line, you got to work that stuff in. And you mentioned authenticity, which is something that I talk about a lot. People can recognize an authentic person being silly. That there's nothing wrong with that, and that's certainly part of the content mix. Did you want to respond to that before I go to my next question? Or are you
Yes,
good?
I'll respond really quick, and then I'm going to go off camera really quick because I have to move for a few minutes, or I can just stand up if you don't mind. But
Sure, I
yeah,
don't mind.
the thing is, I feel like authenticity is huge when you're a coach, specifically, especially if you are coaching in the way that I coach, because authenticity is one of those things I want to coach people through. I really have no choice but to not only show it in social media, but to really be authentic in my own home, right? Like,
Yeah,
one of those examples would be everybody telling me that I couldn't leave my Christmas tree up until Valentine's Day, right? And I'm like, well, I want to leave my Christmas tree for as long as I want. And that's what's authentic to me, right?
sure.
And so I just put a bunch of hearts on it, and there it is. My husband already asked me, like, are you gonna leave the Christmas tree up all year? And I'm like, no, it's until Valentine's. Like, just give it a few more weeks and that's it. And so that's what's authentic to me. That never
Yeah,
happened in my home growing up. Like, that's just something I did for myself, and
yeah.
I have to walk the talk because of the nature.
Sure. If you have to adjust yourself, go right ahead. While you're doing that, I'll go to so as far to say that in my neighborhood, there are people with skeletons still in their front yard. The the Halloween decorations are still up, and I'm not much for Halloween decorations during Halloween. So, and the fascination with that holiday is a subject that I could talk about. I really don't understand how it has become something that rivals Christmas, that rivals New Year's, whatever. It's really amazing to me how that holiday has exploded. Anthony's in the room, and I'm going to bring him up in 1 second because he's an interesting guy, and I bet you he's got some good comments for you. But I do want to say about applying. Here again, we talked a little bit about social media, and you are someone who utilizes Twitter Spaces very effectively. And we've talked about that on the show too. I wish that Twitter Spaces was a little bit more stable. I know that Twitter's going through a lot of changes right now. I've kind of backed away from it only because my usage of it has been there's been a lot of issues, a lot of little um, weird things happening. Like there's 10 people in the room, and Sally can hear George, but George can't hear Sally, and Patrick can hear Mark, but Mark. So with that been going on, I've kind of backed away from it a little bit, and and to be honest, I really like Fireside. Fireside has been something that has just been a good mix. It's just like any other relationship, when you can go out on a couple dates, but sooner or later, they're all nice people. You wish them all the best, but one hits, and Fireside has been one of those ones that has hit for me. I know another one that is being repurposed. In my view, Discord is something that, rightly or wrongly, I've always associated with gamers because I have a lot of friends who are really big into gaming. And people are surprised when I'm not into gaming because as much as I love gadgets, microphones, and everything, I just never caught the gaming bug. I just never did. But a lot of my friends have. And, Discord has been well established. That's an old platform. And now they're trying to bring people in with the social audio aspect, since that has exploded over the last 2 years, and that's fine. But for right now, anyway, I'm kind of content exploring social audio, if that's a thing, if that's a term that we all recognize, on Fireside. With that being said, you're successful on Wisdom and some other ones. What is it? How do you, here again, all the tenets that we talked about that you have, those principles that you have? What is it about audio that you feel works so well for you when you're talking about what you do?
Um, what is it about audio that works so well for me? Let's pick that as the first bit of the question.
Okay,
And I think it really has to do with just me being a talker and being comfortable talking and being
sure.
comfortable expressing my point of view. And this has been a journey, right? Because
Hmm.
coming from abusive and toxic relationships, which is a lot of the advocacy work that I do, I didn't have a voice, right? And I didn't have a platform or really an ear that could listen. And I feel like social audio came into my life at a point where I was literally in my knees praying to figure out, I have this message and I have this love and passion that I want to share with others. Should I start a podcast? Because I used to listen to like 10 podcasts a day
Hmm.
and, carry around a notebook and take notes and learn so much. And so I was literally praying about figuring that out. And then social audio came into, my periphery. And so it's been wonderful to just explore the live conversation, right? Because that's what social audio is, as opposed to a pre-recorded podcast that's just me and my guest or me by myself. And I think somebody like me who grew up in entertainment and who grew up doing moderating and on stage, essentially, I
Hmm.
was never really scared to jump in and just go all in, right? And then um, it was in the beginning, it was a certain kind of, fake it till you make it. I am helping my clients be confident, so I need to show confidence. So what does that sound like? Well, what does that look like? Let me show up in that way, right? And
Hmm.
then 100 200 hours later of social audio, by the time I finished 2022, I had over 200 hours of social audio between Twitter Spaces and Wisdom and Fireside. And so
Wow.
200 plus hours later, there is no fake it till you make it. Like, this is just me and what I talk about, and the confidence, just like, this is it, right? And
Hmm.
so it's been beautiful to grow into it and to really target, what do I want to talk about. And most importantly, in Twitter Spaces, and I'm very grateful that Adam is here because he's my co-host as of late. In Twitter Spaces, I asked my community, what do you want us to discuss? We want to serve you. I don't want to come in here with an agenda, because I want inclusivity. I want people to feel like they are seen. Well, let me ask you what you want to discuss, and then we'll discuss it, right? We'll break it up, we'll dissect it, and we'll tell you what our experience is. And it's been beautiful to include the community in that way, because in the end, that's what community is.
Sure. Fantastic. I really like everything that you're doing, and your strategy, your attitude, and the energy that you provide. In the on the stage, I should say, is Anthony. Anthony, if you want to come up in video, you can come up on video if you so choose. Anthony, do you guys know each other? Have you guys met on Fireside before? You had.
Yes, we have. Graciela has had so many people on her show.
Yes.
She may not remember me. I don't know, but I did write a poem to go into her newsletter. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, so here's, both of you, and I'm being straight. Both of you, I admire both of you because of what you do. Now, Graciela is a empath, and I also have gifts. So I didn't meet Graciela till she came to Fireside,
Hmm.
and I was watching her Monday night show, and I said, well, wait a minute, but she is like brilliant,
Yes.
and it seemed like she wasn't showing her brilliance to me, because this is what I was feeling.
Hmm.
But at the time, I didn't realize she was brilliant. And then I just kept watching and I was like, oh my God, she's crazy brilliant. You know what I'm saying? And I really admire her. Just like Graciela, you're here on this show and you're like amazing. What you're speaking about, your intellect is absolutely incredible. But what is also incredible is that depending on which show you're on, um, you are able to communicate with your audience in the way they are most comfortable, the way they are most accepting, the way they can hear what you're saying. So you are like, oh, just incredible the way you do that. And it's all about, communication. How do you communicate to a person? How do you communicate to a person in a way where they'll not only understand you, but hear you and are able to act on what you are saying, on what you are putting out, which is always good stuff. I don't think I've heard you one time where you weren't like on point with what you're saying,
Yeah.
and it goes with you too, Billy Dees.
Thank you.
You're really, both of you are really amazing, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's just not. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to go to any audience and the audience understands you and hears you and will probably act on the advice you're giving
Hmm.
because it's authentic. Hey, look, we got the authentic in there. So, yeah, you guys are just amazing, especially you, Graciela. So I know I haven't been in your Monday night show because I'm usually asleep. That's where I am. But Graciela has been in Jill and I's show a couple of times, and she's been on Poetic People Fighting Racism a couple of times, and we talked about the difference between racism in Puerto Rico and racism in the United States. And even though it's different, it's not that different. Racism is racism, wherever you are. And, with the work you do, Billy Dees, it's meth addiction. Isn't that what you work with?
Well, yeah. During the day, it's any type of addiction. During my, just to let the audience know, my day job, as it were, is what you call it. I work in the marketing department for a very large nonprofit here in Ohio, who's dedicated to help people with various types of recovery, which stem from, let's say, mental health, addiction recovery, which covers the whole gamut. Whether it's alcohol, and of course, fentanyl now is becoming a big problem across the nation. There's a number of others, any of these types of things, and we also do social outreach. There's a couple of shelters and all that are funded largely by donations. A lot of the clinical stuff we do is paid for by insurance, but we never turn anybody away. I won't get into all the
Right.
details of that, but it's those three pillars: social outreach, recovery, addiction recovery, and that includes, like I said, whether it be what we normally say is drugs or alcohol. DOA is the clinical term. AOD, I'm sorry, alcohol and other drugs. I got that reversed. And then we do social outreach and mental health. So those are the three pillars. But yes, to answer your question, all of those things are inclusive. Yes.
Yes, and just to be in that field, in your so-called day job, but it's not a day job. In order to work in that area, you have to truly care.
Hmm.
I mean, you really do. It's not just a job. It's it's helping people. And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Um, I know you understand that. I know Graciela understands that. I know that Sonia in the audience there understands it. I know that Adam understands it. About everybody in your audience here tonight understands that, we're here to do good stuff. We're
Yeah.
here to try to make things better.
Yeah.
We do what we can, but as long as we're answering our call, we're good. We
Yeah.
just need to do that and not shy away with it. So, and it's another reason why I love everybody I just mentioned, but then I love everybody. You guys know that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't doubt that you are well loved too, Anthony, because you certainly got that spirit.
okay. Well, thank you. And hey, again, Jill's always telling me don't take over somebody's show, so I'll be
Well, I
quiet for a
appreciate all
minute.
your comments. I'll just follow up with about nonprofits in general, but particularly ones that do anything with mental health and these other types of things. People who work there, and a lot of people who work there have jobs that are far harder than mine, especially on the people that are, helping people that come in off the streets. These are people that desperately need help. And unfortunately, a lot of these people don't realize that you're trying to help them. And their faculties just aren't there. And some of these caseworkers that work on the front lines of this are helping people who resent you for trying to help them. And on top of that, they're not getting paid a whole lot. They're there because they believe in the mission. And through the course of a week or through the course of a month, they live for those moments when somebody breaks through and turns their life around. And the work that they do is, as the cliche says, is God's work. Because if they were in it for the money, they'd be somewhere else. They'd be in the private sector somewhere. So, I have a lot of respect for those people who work for our organization, because I mean, I suppose I could make more money if I worked for Pepsi, but I like helping people who are making the world a better place. And even though I don't do it directly, I'm not a provider. But I do like that culture. Jill, you are on the stage, and you always bring a great energy. And I'll let Jill have some comments for Graciela.
Why, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the stage. Hello, Graciela. I just want to say to both of you that in the short time that I've listened to you all on Fireside, and I feel like I'm getting to know you, you both have incredible empathy levels that I've ever seen, and I consider you both everyday activists because you are helping people. You are in you're using your gifts to help others, and we should all strive to do that, in my opinion. So I just wanted to tell both of you that I appreciate everything that you all do. Graciela, I'm glad you mentioned that you had once didn't have a voice. I'm glad you found it. I'm glad you're using it because you have such strong messages every time I hear you that I think must be shared. I think that's part of your mission in life and your purpose for being here. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to both of you.
Thank you so much, Jill. And
absolutely. That's very kind. Jill, you have an energy that comes across. I was listening to you and Anthony the other day. You have this unmistakable energy that comes across. And quite frankly, that's something that you either have or you don't. You can coach people how to maybe bring it out a little bit, but you either have it or you don't. And what do you bring when you are coming up with a show and you're planning it or whatever? Do you have a strategy, or does it just come naturally? What do you fold into the spoken word? What about the spoken word, whether you're on video or not, when you're just here on Fireside? What do you feel suits you so well about this medium? What makes you come through so well? Is it something that you've worked at, or is what is your strategy so that other people who are considering doing something like this can kind of listen to what works for you?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's twofold for me. Number one, you all talked about authenticity, and I
Hmm.
think that's first and foremost, because you're bringing yourself. We all have our personal brands, and I don't do anything that takes me off my brand. So whether I'm listening to a show or doing a show, the other part of it is that for many years I worked as a TV producer. So I think in terms of, well, let's have a conversation, let's inform, but a lot of times you get your point across if you inform and entertain. So that
Hmm.
maybe the message sticks with people, but they're not sure why. And it's because you entertained
Yeah,
them. We're not preachy. None of us
sure.
is preachy. But we Tony and I come up with ideas for a show sometimes right before the show.
Hmm. Well,
And
sometimes
it's
that's the way it works, and then sometimes
and
those
it's
are the best ones. Yeah, go ahead.
right, right. And it's really, like, well, what do we like to talk about? And we stick to our personal brand. We are what you see on when we're in a show together. That's what you would see if you met us in person. We just happen to be in front of you as we do it. So authenticity first and foremost, and then I bring my skill set of having produced shows before.
Yeah. And it certainly shows because so professional. I'll give everyone in the audience there one last chance to come up. Graciela has a show that she has to do at the top of the hour, and I definitely want to cap the show here relatively soon. But before I do that, Graciela, we hear so much about hope. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the program. And a lot of people could make the argument that we're living in a time where there is a lot of hopelessness. Okay. There's a lot of world events that have very scary implications. Division for whatever reason. We could argue about or discuss the reasons for all the division in our country, but there's a lot of division now. Probably more so than I can remember ever. I mean, it's to the point now where everybody is on a team. Everybody is in a bubble. Everybody is in their own reality, and you can't sway them from that. And that's one of the reasons I'm kind of I really like what Anthony says about talking, having these forums, being able to communicate, because I hope we break some of that down. But my point in all of this is that sometimes we can feel like the world makes us sad. To kind of wrap up the program, what message of hope would you have for people that are out there that just want to feel better about life and going out and starting their day and going to work and doing the things that you have to do to get by?
Well, I mean, I'm laughing because that's a tough one, right?
Oh, sure it is.
It's
Yes,
a
and
tall
I
order.
don't, yeah, I don't, I'm not expecting you to outline a clinical thing,
Of
but
course.
just, yeah,
So,
just
so let's
because,
break that down.
okay, sure, go right ahead.
Yes, right. Because we're breaking it down from the world and everything that's going on out there and that hopelessness. And now we're bringing it into my own personal experience and me waking
Yes.
up every day to go live my life. Right. And
Yeah.
I feel like, so as a highly sensitive empath, I struggle 100% of the time with what's going on at the world level. Right. I cannot
Yeah.
watch the news. If I do watch the news, I'm going to be physically, emotionally, energetically affected by what's going on. So I put boundaries around that and I research what I need to research. But these are things that are very common for empaths to struggle with, right? And so, do I want to make the world a better place and for all of us to live in peace and love and happiness? Absolutely. But part of that acceptance piece that has to really come into place in order for me to thrive in my day to day is, well, I can't really influence the whole world at large because,
Hmm.
I don't have access to the whole world, but I can influence at home, in my community, my sphere of influence. It starts within. And if I don't show up for myself, then I can't show up for the people that are immediate to me, so on and so forth. It's like we all believe that the word influencer only applies if I have 20,000 followers, when in
Right.
reality, if you have one follower, you have an impact. You can influence, you can build community. It starts with you and your, immediate sphere of influence. And as you know, I'm a stepmother of young adults. My
Hmm.
stepkids are between 17 and 24, and they are my sphere of influence, the immediate people I can have influence over, my husband, my child. And so we tend to kind of like blind ourselves with these media myths about influencing and making a difference. But in reality, it's like the day to day. And then to wrap up your question, my son is roaring like he's a dinosaur. This is what you're listening to. To wrap up your question, a
Hmm.
message that I would like to share with others is, the most impressive thing that I found out about hope, which is that no one is hopeless. And what I use to kind of back that up is the fact that the American Psychological Association has no evidence of hopelessness or false hope in their research. So they took an age group, they took a topic, they took all these experiments, and everybody showed a level of hope that counts, even if it's 1%, right? And
Yep.
so they have zero evidence of false hope. And what that tells me is, even when you feel like you're hopeless, there is hope out there. The question is, are you open enough to see it? Are you welcoming it? Are you open enough
Yes.
to receive it? So
That's a great point. A lot of times when we fall into that trap, we have a tendency to focus on the negative things. And there is a lot of good out there. There's absolutely a lot of good out there, and that should energize us. That's a great point. Sonia just came up. I want to go to her, and then I'll go to Jill and Anthony for any closing remarks. So we're coming up on the hour, and I know you have to get ready to do your show. Sonia, welcome to the stage. It's always great to have you, and please go ahead and speak.
Such a pleasure, of course, to listen in. And, Graciela, whatever you do affects the whole world, by the way. Just, not only around you, because you're on social media as well. Look at how many people heard you, right? And that's international. So it is global in many ways. So I just want to say that coming up here because, that's how we affect the world, just being who we are and working from the inside. So people like, Billy and I talk about you like that, right? And so in that sense, in our circle of influence, we are also spreading the message of what's being, taught or what's being said. So it's something that we have to be conscious of, right? Because everything that way, our actions are also conscious about, what we do. Just that's thought I say a little bit. Thank you. I just want to come and
thank you
say
so
that.
much, Sonia.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. Graciela, did you want to respond to that, or you did you have anything to say? No, you're good.
No,
Okay.
I just want to thank you for your kind words, and you're absolutely right. And we tend to take ourselves for granted because sometimes, the progress or the lack thereof just really, it can be discouraging, but I definitely appreciate.
Thank you for coming up, Sonia. Here again, we're closing in on the last 15 minutes, and I'm not going to go right up to 9 o'clock because Graciela does have to prep for her show. Jill, any closing remarks? Anything you want to say to Graciela?
Keep soaring.
Awesome. Anthony.
Okay. Oh, that was my wife. That was quick. Keep soaring. Hey, no, but seriously, you, Graciela, again, we love you. We really do, even though you don't see us as much, but we really do love you. But, when we're talking about being authentic, I had an audience member say to me in the I'm Right show, I'm trying to figure out who you are. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, sometimes you sound like Eddie Murphy. Sometimes you sound like Barack Obama. Which is it? It's both of those. I'm being authentic. I'm being who I am. So it doesn't matter which show we're in, doesn't matter which show we're a guest in, we're still being authentic. Maybe the people see a different part of us, but it's still us. And that's like Graciela, hands down. We see another part of Graciela in Billy Dees show. Than the Monday night show. We'll see a different part of Graciela in someone else's show, but that's still Graciela. That is still who she is. She's authentic, and she does not deviate. So we love you. And
Yes.
soar.
Yes, and soar.
Soar, keep going.
Oh, Anthony. Yes. Thank you so much. And, just a little bit to reply to that. It's been, I've put in the work to get to that, right? It's like Jill was talking about really developing my voice. And I've been journaling since I was a teenager. And it's been a journey to look back at my journaling and find out that I really had a message, I had a voice, and I had a desire to share it, but I wasn't in a home where I was heard or given that chance, right? Like I literally had to raise my hand to wait for my turn, for my family to be like, okay, what do you have to say? Like that was my childhood. And then of course, the relationships that followed that were not a safe space for me to express myself. And so it's been a journey to kind of embrace like all of those parts of myself. It's like, I love Jesus Christ. I love going to church. Absolutely. I can talk about the gospel all day long, but I also like the moon and I like astrology. Like, why would I hide that away just because, right? If I can just deliver a very specific message and show up authentic and just do what I love. And so it's been a journey to kind of target those parts of myself that I want to share. And it's, I wouldn't have been authentic if I had been in my room because I'm home alone with a child. So I need him on my lap, or I need him to be roaring if that's what he wants to do, because that's what's authentic to my experience right now, right? And so there's a lot that goes into figuring that out, and it's been a journey to get here. So thank you for seeing me.
Graciela, thank you. Obviously, a great talk this evening. Thank you, everyone. And I always make a point to say, even if you just listened, you had an impact. Being there as listeners affects the show. And it's true even in physics. It's been shown that subatomic particles behave differently when they're being observed. So everyone has an effect on the show. I'd like to thank everyone that came up and spoke. And like I said, I do want to wrap things up just before the hour, because Gracie, now your show that's coming up, what platform is that on? Is that on Fireside, or where's that at?
It's on Wisdom, is the Wisdom Writers Group. We meet every Friday at 9 p.m. And tonight we're talking about branding for authors.
That sounds like a very interesting show, and I'll try to listen in if I can, at least to a little bit of that, because branding is so important. Ernest Hemingway is a brand as much as he is an author. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. She says yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so is, Edgar Allan Poe and Walt Whitman and all of these amazing.
Absolutely. Graciela, thank you very much. Now you're on Twitter. You're SOM Coaching, at SOM Coaching on Twitter. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay, good. You can follow me on Twitter. Real easy to find on Twitter, at Billy Dees. You can tweet me anytime. Just be nice. That's what I always tell people. Thank you for everyone who participated, came up on the stage. Thank you, everyone who came in to listen. Thank you so much for being here. That's going to wrap things up for this evening. And I hope to talk to you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.